first thing is currently he's the managing partner at July Ventures, and he's an angel investor, and he's also a startup incubation specialist, and he has worked in global companies as a corporate leader in many companies, focused on mainly ERP management and implementations in Oracle and other organizations. But for us, he's a dear charter member and of Thai Bangalore chapter. And of course, he is also connected with very active in India Angel Networks. And he's an active member, trustee on 2 NGOs. And he's a board member of several companies. And today, you are really very fortunate to have him, come and address and talk to us. And what I would like all of you is, he's going to make this a very interactive session. And I would like you to be very active, ask as many questions as possible. No question is a bad question unless it has an answer. So ask him as many questions as possible and learn. And this is a privilege to have Ravindra. Ravindra, great friend. And Ravindra, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Geeta. You make it sound very, very illustrative. Now I have to live up to your words.
No, you don't have to. You already are.
No. I actually see a few names of other people that I know. I was quickly glancing through. Kanchan, Sumana, hi, everyone. So it's good to be talking through. So I think technically this is probably only the second or the third session for this year, which is like under par for course for the year that we have gone through. So yeah, glad to be doing this.
Sure. Thank you so much.
As Geeta said, I'll kind of work this through, but as Geeta said, I know some of you have gone through multiple of these presentations, right? So it is only going to add value, as according to me, if we can take some live cases, get into that discussion and debate. I'm one of the opinion that no answer is the right answer unless it works. So happy to take on and work through that structure. So very quickly, the way I put this through, I don't know if some of you have been through some of my sessions. I usually do, I've done both on the marketing side and the sales side. So marketing less so as compared to sales, because in a lot of cases, I've been asked to come in and comment about what is changing in the sales cycle off late, right? Especially, pre-COVID to post-COVID. And during the COVID times, we actually ran a B2B sales webinar that ran for about 8 sessions each where people were doing a deep dive. So I did a couple of sessions at that time, coordinated some. So very clearly, what I'll try and bring out is what is changing and what is changing rapidly as we go through. The other piece that I kind of asked a few people what would they like to cover. So there was a whole lot of question associated with the brand promise and the brand positioning and a few other things associated with, how do you go about, can you reposition a brand? What if you have changed your promise? How do you go and position? So I'll try and walk through some of those kind of cases just to help as we go through. But any questions, just put up your hand, stop, and we're happy to debate as we go through, right? And we'll also start talking about how do you build a marketing stack and a sales stack, right? Quick round, if it'll help me. Does anybody have expectation that at the end of this, they will be able to achieve a particular one? So if you have any quick comments before we start off, that will be good for me to reset expectation, or at least act as a guideline to expectations. Anybody at all?
Yeah. Hi, Ravindra. This is Ramya.
Hey, Ramya.
Can I take a minute?
Sure.
So I run a sustainable lifestyle company called Beautiful Me. We are trying to be a one-stop shop for all sustainable lifestyle needs, such as cleathing, cookware, cleaners, natural cleaners, bath powders, etc.
Got it.
While I know that anything can be sold,
Right.
literally anything, because I do see even, cow dung being sold on Amazon.
Right. Right.
But I am getting an impression as I speak to as many marketing, advisors that online marketing is a long-term, very, very expensive process.
Yes and no, but why don't you complete your?
So I would, yes, I would like to know more about it.
Sure. So
would only online work, or even brands can be successful by just doing offline these days? So that's what I would like to understand.
Sure. Just from my perspective, your comment was that in relation to aggregators like Amazon and Flipkart and others, or was that also in relationship to your own position?
To both.
Okay. Yeah. So remind me when I come in halfway through, when I talk about channel, I think I have a slide on channel. Remind me at that time if I miss it out, but I'll try and remember that and try to put that.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hello, good evening, sir. My name is Vartika. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, hi. Sir, we design and manufacture pet products for medium and giant breed dogs. So before COVID, we were into B2B sales. And after COVID, we have also started D2C sales. So can you tell me some of the guidelines which we have to keep in mind, the difference between marketing and branding strategy for B2B and for D2C? Because both are very different for me.
Yeah, so very similar to what I think the same slide that I spoke to Ramya just now kind of talks through what is changing in that context. But again, let's try and make that very, very, let's try and address your question separately as we go through, right? Because, at a very high level, I think both your questions then go back to where is the audience that you are trying to attract and what will attract the audience. So it's more, how do you cater to that audience? How do you find out that audience? But again, keep that in mind. This is very good information to have because I can set the context as I go through. But Vartika, if I don't cover it, don't hesitate to bug me before the end of it.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much.
So, Ravindra, good evening. Thank you so much for coming on the Thai Women BPC program and enhancing our knowledge today. So and it's wonderful to see you after Startups versus COVID, the collaborations we used to have. So just wonderful to see you again, and we're really looking forward to the session. But one thing actually I just wanted to also share with you is that I struggle to close the sale. So if there are tips on, either online or even offline mode, because I'm trying to do things which don't scale by, addressing a group of people who need loans from my startup, let's say Loan Genie, they require these very small loans, but I don't see them converting. So I know that they are the exact income group that I'm trying to target.
You're saying you have the right audience, but you have no conversion.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Kanchan, good to see you too. Absolutely. So let's try and figure that out also. But the only piece is, you have the right audience. The only thing I would probably have you analyze before we get to that is, do you know if you have the right need? If they have the right need, right? So let's go back and work through that as we go through. But great to see you.
Sure. Thanks. Same here.
Yeah. Yes, Shrishti, you had a question?
Hi, sir. My name is Shrishti, and I run a platform, an edtech platform, where we actually make people umpires, sports analysts, sports commentators, sports journalists, so on and so forth. We actually say people who don't want to become doctor, engineer, and accountant should come. So anyways, what is my query? There are two queries actually. One is, sir, we get calls from people who do branding, like very big media houses, companies who are into very much focused on sports marketing and all, and they come to us and say that this is for branding. There will be so many clicks, there will be so many eyeballs and things like that. So as a startup, how much should we focus on that? Because branding, I mean, whatever we have done, even as small sponsorships, it's a big long-term game.
Sure.
Right. And as a startup, you always have crunch of money. you always have this thing that, opportunity cost, that should you invest right now in Facebook ads or should you do this as a sponsorship? Because sponsorship is a black box. You may get it, you may not get it. The student may come after 1 month also, or after 1 year also, may not come as well. That's one question. And second is, my product is little mindset changing, because so those courses people never heard about. Though we have very good success rates, we have students like working in ESPN, Times Now, TV9 after doing our courses. There are students who have come back and said that no need to do a sports management degree if you have co-learn. So yeah, so but then, ma'am, sir, we had those early users and it was really good traction. But now, how do I scale it up and make it, TAM, as in terms of people who want to get into only umpiring, or it may be smaller, but TAM is very big when you want to get associated with your favorite sports, even if you're doing it as a side hustle on the weekends.
Right.
So that's my second question, that how should I make it $1 billion business?
Okay. I'll be very honest. It's a tough one, but let's try and work through. One comment though, again, as I talked to Kanchan, for you to think through when we come and discuss, we'll start discussing some of these in detail as we go through. While that is happening, you mentioned that yours is a very horizontal offering and you have lots of people coming in and quoting or asking you to do ads based on CPI, CPM, eyeballs, etc.
Yeah.
Today, do you have a measure of your incoming leads versus leads where you know that there is interest and somebody's expressed interest? Do you have if I ask you last week, did you know how many incoming leads you had? Can you name a number?
So we do our courses in two formats, sir. One is we ask students to pay for a workshop, which is a 500 rupees workshop. In that month, we have just started that in January. Before that, we had only full courses.
So you have some kind of a freemium model where you kind of ask for a smaller course and then
and then we upsell. So there our conversions has been 30 to 60% every single time.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we'll come to that.
But on a calling basis where people have expressed interest to see, put their details, we have only 10 to 12% conversions.
Sure. All right. Got it. Okay. Again, we will dive into each one. I've at least got 4 things, which is excellent, because that makes this so much more relevant than just trying to pick as we go through, right? Anybody else before I jump in? I can't see anybody else, so let me start off. So quick start as a base. I'll close this so that it doesn't distract. So put up your hand if you think you have something. Quickly, what is the relevance? Why am I going to be talking about this? I think from a way, whatever I present, let me be very honest, I'm going to present the CEO view of what I see as marketing. I neither claim to be the expert in digital marketing or marketing, nor do I claim to be up to speed in all the tools and what is to be the best practice, etc. So as an expression, I'm saying I'm not the specialist in that sense. I'm more the generalist, but having helped people look through the process, look through some of this as what has worked and what has not worked. A lot of what I'm going to comment today or what I'm going to say today is a CEO view. And why do I claim to have a CEO view is that I have done both B2B and B2C startups and I've exited them successfully. So I think I have that knowledge of actually having to try to reach out to some of these pieces, both in the marketing context and the sales conversion context, right? So that's why am I giving you that as a disclaimer is if you ask me something very specific to, SEMrush, some tool, which is better, I will probably give you at a very generic level answer, but then I'll promise I'll go dig in, ask people relevant to figure out what they have seen. That's one, right? The second disclaimer is a lot of what, if I name some structures, if I go back and say something has worked, something has not worked, please bear in mind that is relevant to the kind of companies that I have invested in. I have invested both in B2B and B2C companies. Early days, for the last, when I say early days, last 10, 12 years, I've been an active angel investor. So some of the pieces that I will do is with reference to that, and may not refer to some of the aggregation plays that have happened in the last 2 years, right? Where there is brand aggregation happening, etc. So I will not be able to work for that, but wherever I can, I'll try and give you the relevant examples, if you may, right? All right. So very quickly going through, and I'm going to do a round where we go in, and I now want some response from all of you. So there are 3 logos, essentially 3. No, it's not 4. That's 3 logos, and there's a reason I put out those 3 logos on top. Well-known automobile logos, and then there are 3 logos at the bottom, which are more to represent a service industry logo, right? I've picked up the hotel industry for a reason, and I'll start to work through what the brand is and what the brand stands for. And this is a very important distinction in my mind, because the interpretation of this is very, very different. If I were to ask 5 of you, what's your brand promise versus what's your brand positioning? In my experience, I get conflicting feedback, right? In some cases, people talk about brand positioning as the brand promise. In some cases, people talk about brand promise as the brand positioning. So I'm now going to try and figure that out, right? So 2 questions on this, and we can have multiple people respond. So as soon as you see the logos on top, I want some feedback, and somebody just come in and say, this is what these particular logos mean to you personally, or what do you think? You may not have used the product, but what do you think it represents? Anybody? Actually, I should say everybody, but we may not have time for everybody. I just want to start getting a feel for and using this as a context for talking through.
Yeah, so Ravindra, I can go at least BMW. It stands, the brand promise for me for BMW is quality, and the positioning is classy, like really high class.
Okay, so classy meaning they are a cut above the rest, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in terms of the looks. Okay. So it is like a class apart. You can have a BMW and you can have the rest of the vehicles. You can straight away make a difference that this is BMW.
Okay, great. Class apart and quality. That's the 2 things that. Anybody else? Okay, why don't you do the other 2 and then I will pass it to somebody else. We'll come to the Marriott and other things next stage. Let's do at least 5 feedback on the top line before we move on. Anybody else?
Okay,
sorry, do you want to finish that thought for?
Yeah,
and then we'll go to the next person. Sorry, just more.
Suzuki would be value for money.
Okay.
And positioning is common man's car.
Okay.
And Nexa, I don't know, but Tesla promises a green earth, and positioning is affordable BMW or something.
Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting that you're saying it's affordable BMW. Anyway, okay, that's good. Let's not get into a debate on each one. I'll start to work through. Anybody? Yeah, another person, please. Somebody else?
Hi, Ravindra. My name is Bala.
Hey, Bala.
Hi. I think for me, it's interesting. These 2 groups are very interesting. So for me, I think BMW and Marriott kind of for me, in terms of positioning, I think I kind of relate to BMW and Marriott in the same way, where it's about very established brands, you know what to expect from them, value for them, and about their values, perfection, and all that. And Tesla and Airbnb, for me, it's about innovation. It's about it's where the world is heading to. So I think I think of BMW and Marriott as where we are at the moment, and Tesla and Airbnb more of innovation, where it's experiential is aspirational. That's how I see it.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good, Bala. I need three more before I start asking the same set of people.
Hi, Ramya here.
Yeah,
so
Ramya.
for me, the top four actually promise the same thing. Good experience in driving.
Okay.
Whereas the positioning for all four, Nexa, I don't know. But as others said, BMW is positioning it as a rich man's car. So someone who can, even if the price becomes affordable, maybe people won't think of it.
Okay.
Because they've always thought it's an expensive thing.
Okay. Okay.
Suzuki is something that all of us, it offers a very stable car for the price the price it is offered. Value for money.
Yeah,
Tesla is innovation. Tesla, people who like something very new, they have positioned themselves as a very innovative and sustainable. They claim to be a sustainable brand, but Tesla's lab is considered extremely innovative, and it's more like every innovator's dream to own that and try that.
Okay.
But promise-wise, all four promise driving.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so you're from a just from a piece, just so that I understand, you're saying promise for you in this case is it is a promise of functionality of giving you a good drive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a functional promise.
Yes, it's a functional promise.
Okay, great. Anybody else? We need at least one more, right? Just to get these things going.
Yeah. Hi, Ravindra. This is Shyam. So for me, BMW, like they say, it's their tagline that it's the ultimate driving machine.
Okay.
So it's a combination of technology, innovation, luxury, and sometimes feel-good factor also.
Okay.
And so as Maruti Suzuki, it's the most affordable car and in the lower to mid segment, so everybody can afford it. But Nexa, they positioned it like a little higher premium segment to satisfy the customers of to give them the feeling of little bit of luxury. And Tesla, it's a more sustainable, innovative, and the most advanced technology company, like the futuristic.
Great. Okay. Now, I don't have a slide for this, but I want you to think through. Right? In whatever you have done, whatever the positioning that has happened, I'll just cover a few things, right? So I think we are consistent in the fact that BMW spells two things. One, it spells, for most of you, it's a positioning that is for the rich or the upper crust of the segment, right? That came out kind of consistently. Along with that, you also talked about ultimate driving machine, which is like a experience that you look after, that you crave for. And in some ways, there was also mention about quality and the fact that it was a class apart, etc. Right? So in that context, I want you to think through and tell me, from a brand positioning, right? Do you know if it is the same set of audience all of them are going after, or is there a certain aspiration of audience? From an audience perspective, can you just give me a quick comment to say, is it the same audience? It's different audience, and if so, what's so different about that audience? How are they attracting that audience?
Ravindra, can I go? This is
Yeah,
Sumana here.
sure.
I think the target audience for each of these cars are clearly different in terms of financial affordability and aspirations they have. Yeah, they're all different, I would say. I'm sorry.
Okay, they're all different, and so in it kind of comes to the next set, right? Now I will come back and answer. There are two things that I want to address before I go on to the next side. There was a talk about Tesla being green is perfectly fine. There was a comment about affordable Tesla, right? Not really sure about that because the Tesla starting line, if you remember, and I'll show you a slide on that, was actually more expensive than the starting line of BMW, right? So there was a deliberate positioning that they took, and I'll come to that in just a minute, right? But on this particular slide, it is very, very important to understand I'm trying to figure out something very, very significant. The significant piece that I'm trying to figure out is that in most cases, do you think that they figured out the audience and then did the brand positioning, or was it the other way around? The point that I'm making is in all these cases, in the top three, do they know the audience? Do you think they had the audience segmented before the tagline was built or before the positioning of the brand was done in terms of a brand promise? Anybody?
Might be 50-50.
So let me talk about what is called as an equivalence partitioning. Tell me the brand that first comes to your mind when you think of BMW. Does another brand come to your mind?
Mercedes.
Okay, great.
Mercedes and Audi.
So effectively what is happening in your mind is you are slotting them into a particular structure and saying that, look, this is my benchmark associated, right? Very clearly, the moment I say BMW, it's not just BMW, but you're actually having I would almost say a cluster of brands that you are positioning them on, right? It could be Mercedes, it could be Audi. Don't know if it's Lexus, but think about it, right? And then that's an important story I will do 2-3 stories after this that gives you a feel for why this is very important. The same, when you think of Tesla, is there an equivalent positioning that you have?
I think Tesla has been an innovator, so their target audience would be early innovators, early adapters. If you look at the technology adoption curve, people who want to, experiment with new technology and new products, even though there is no promise of value at the moment.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So who do you think has a bigger? Who do you think has a tougher time in marketing? For who is it more difficult to set marketing and marketing expectations?
Tesla.
Tesla is more difficult. And why is it more difficult?
Because they'll have to convince the customers, the prospects, that they have a technology with a promise here, which can deliver them value in the near term or longer term, because you need all those logistics of charging equipment and facilities to be available if you go for an electric car.
Fantastic. So the reason I'm asking, the reason I'm diving to that level of detail is, especially for later stage companies, one of the things that we do is that we don't realize that your entry into the market or your early positioning, and this is relevant to slightly later stage companies, we don't realize that as you progress in the market, as your name and as your identity gets working through, you decide, you have to make a choice on, am I going to continue with the positioning, the structure, or am I going to have a subtle change? Your market entry may actually end up being slightly different from the downstream positioning. Now, if you think about it, and I'll give an example. So when somebody like a Uber came in and positioned in the market, there was nobody equivalent, right? Even when Airbnb came and positioned themselves as a platform, there was really nobody equivalent. Whereas somebody like a Suzuki, in fact, I've removed the Maruti status because very few of you may realize that they don't carry the Maruti logo at all in most cases. It's now the Suzuki logo. The Suzuki logo to a Nexa, they had to do that because they had to establish that there was slightly aspirational that they had to build into the structure. And that could be internal to the company. It could also be what they see happening in the market, right? And a prime example of that, before I dive in and work through, is the case of Tata Nano, right? Now, for a minute, think about it. Tata Nano was supposed to be the world's most affordable car, and it had a few things going in the initial stage. Positioning was probably right, everything was fine. But one component that it probably did not cater to is that there was an aspirational need for that segment of people that they were targeting, right? And that aspirational need almost meant that if you bought a Tata Nano, you could not show off to your neighbors, right? You are better off buying a Bullet for the family than you were, or you were better off buying a second-hand Maruti or the Suzuki or a Hyundai than to buy a Tata Nano, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's very, very important. As you drive through this, very few people realize that it's not just the logo and the identity that you are establishing. You are establishing the positioning ahead. So in some ways, I will argue, while all the books and everybody else that I have known talk about doing promise and positioning in that sequence, I will argue that it's probably better off for you to think of the positioning and then derive the promise and then go back and enhance the promise and the structure, right? Now I want you to apply that to the lower set. The lower set is slightly different. If the one above the line, you talked about, I think one of you said it's almost equivalent. BMW, Marriott, luxury, old time, whereas Airbnb and Tesla are new tech, new processes, possibly the younger crowd that you're trying to attract, right? There's a fundamental difference. The fundamental difference is the one above is a set of products that you can touch and feel. When somebody talked about an experience, technically you can experience this not just by look, but it's also by touch and feel and ride quality. And there was a comment made on ultimate driving machine. So those are things that you can actually express very, very well when you have a product, right? But below the line that you see there, you will see that they are all three that I picked up is the service industry, right? It's the hospitality industry, right? In the hospitality industry, I want people to drive the same example. So 3-4 between those three. I know one of you already talked about Marriott to Airbnb, but I want you to think of all three: Marriott, Airbnb, Bloom Rooms. Can somebody just comment on, is the segmentation very clear? Here I want to, yeah, please. Go ahead. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you read those three? And how do you think they are differentiated? And more importantly, do you think they are catering to a different audience, or they're sending a different messaging to a different audience? Anybody?
Ravindra,
yeah, go ahead, Kanchan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sumana. Good to see you here. So Ravindra, very quickly, I'll share that for me, Marriott means this is targeted at a higher income group, and which is mostly businessmen, out. So that's what for me Marriott signifies. And Airbnb for me signifies a lot of new experiences. So one day it could be a villa, another day it could be sharing a room with a couple of other people in a different city other than yours. And this is targeted at millennials who are looking more for experiences, who are looking for, I would say, affordable accommodation rather than the Marriott kind of people who are looking for obviously good experiences at higher prices.
Sure. Okay. So you are saying that's the segmentation is very clear. That's a upper crust of the sector, and they want quality and they want a few other things that are associated and don't mind paying that extra premium. Correct?
Yes, and could be business audience. And whereas for Airbnb, I think it's mostly millennials.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the general, the chunk of their audience, not looking at, of course, Airbnb would have even, millionaires come in and stay at Airbnb. But that is not the core target audience, I would think. So this is what I was thinking.
Okay. All right. That's good. Everybody else, is that consistent, or tell me if there is a difference in opinion for some reason? Yeah.
Yeah, I had another additional point to what Kanchan said. Marriott, I would say, is like predictable service, right? You know what to expect when you go to Marriott, and the amount of effort it goes into booking a room and all is like really insignificant. Right. Whereas if you have to get a reasonably good Airbnb booking, you will have to probably browse through hundreds of facilities before you decide on one. And even after putting in that much of effort, you're not assured of any, you can't really predict the quality of your stay until you get there. So there's an element of unpredictability when it comes to Airbnb. So it will have to be more affordable and make up for the unpredictability in some other ways, I suppose. And Bloom Rooms, I'm not sure. I haven't heard of them.
Anybody on Bloom Rooms? Thanks, Sumana. I'm just making notes as we go through, but yeah.
So my name is Vandana Suri, and I'm in the space of women and child safety. Okay, I run women cabs. So everything that I look at is basis a woman, how safe she feels. Right. And even if Marriott is more expensive and I'm a solo traveler, right, I will still go and spend that extra buck at Marriott, right, then go to any of the other two. Okay, so for me, I'll even if it's in the unaffordable zone, maybe I'm very middle class, but if I have to go solo, I'll still choose a 5-star over the other two.
Okay, so for you, safety matters, and you're saying you feel safer. It gives
I'll pay the premium for safety. Yes.
Got it. All right, fantastic. So while we pick other brains as we go through, I'm making a few notes, but I want you to understand some of this, because if you think through, there are two words that were expressed time and again in all three cases. One was quality, and now it is talking about safety, right? The third one, in some ways, was not the word, but it was seen as standard, right? When I say standard, it was standard expectation of quality. Like a Marriott, I know I can trust, right? So there was almost like the word trust, but not trust in the sense of expectation to quality is what I'm talking about. Expectation to what I expect to see if I were to go and book that. Please keep those three words aside, because we will address that. Thanks, Vandana. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Srishti, and my family is associated with running, Airbnb kind of luxury villas. Sure. And sir, one thing which I think, that's an insider point, we get a lot of CEOs and CXO level people in Airbnb itself. And most of them are already billionaires. And some of them are like IKEA head and all those people. Why do they come when they have options to go to Ritz-Carlton or Marriott? Because they will normally travel with family. And even if they have a suite in a Marriott, they will come for a month or 2 months. With kids, it's not feasible. So they want luxury at the comfort of their home, and which Airbnb does it for them.
Okay, so I'm marking it differently. I'm marking it as more than comfort, I'm saying a differentiated piece where they feel that they are getting something customized to their requirement. Is that
exactly? Yeah, they will go for the best villas in Airbnb, but they will still go for Airbnb vis-a-vis a Ritz-Carlton, and we have gotten so many number of case studies here. So
Sure.
they come because they want that comfort of home.
Sure.
They want a bigger garden. They want a big villa.
Thanks, Trish. So just a point. Sir is not necessary. Ravi is fine. So let's move on. Yeah, Sumana, you had raised your hand.
You mentioned that brands will probably have to think of positioning before the promise, right? I just wanted to ask you if that is true for all brands, or for innovative brands, like they're playing a different game, like in the case of Tesla or Airbnb. Their value proposition is totally new to the market, right? So they may have to define the promise before positioning, because they don't know really, what kind of prospects will find it appealing, their promise, right? So
you are saying it is good for them to be slightly vague and then experiment, and based on feedback pick the area that they think they don't have choice.
Yeah, so they're because of the innovation quotient, they are like they are promising a new value proposition, right? They have come out with a new kind of solution that the market hasn't seen before.
Okay,
so
hold that thought.
Is their
Yeah, hold that thought. I will going to come back, because on that thought, I'm going to ask you a very, very specific question. When it came to so Tesla started with electric cars, right? Let's not worry about the technology, lithium ion, nitride, all of that. Let's leave that out for a minute. But technically, they were not the first electric car. In India, we have had Reva much before that. In the US, Leaf from Nissan was a much older car that had actually a good run, but never took off, right? So it was not so much the innovation of an electric car itself, right? I'm not giving you the answer. I'm just asking you to think through while we do these other steps. Just think through that, because I'm going to ask you that in just about 2 slides, Sumana.
Sure.
Okay. So think through that piece as we go through. So now let me kind of work through and say, why did I pick these brands? Why did I pick these? I could have picked hundreds of logos. There's a reason why I picked this 3 to get you to start thinking. I'm kind of laying the groundwork for you to think different, right? And I'm telling you, a lot of what you do as your marketing execution starts from this processing, from this thought process that we want to work. Why did I pick BMW? Because I picked BMW for somebody who's been there for a long, long time. He's seen as very good German engineering. Quality is not a question. Driving experience is not a question. They are obviously claiming and getting their premium as compared to the market, right? And they have to protect 2 things. They have to protect their perception of quality. They also have to protect that they are not the old and staid German engineering company that has been there for lots of times. It's only the vehicles that your uncles and granduncles would buy, and they have to protect themselves against that. So their thought process is, how do I innovate? How do I keep my brand fresh, right? That's one. The second reason I picked up Suzuki and I picked up Nexa is that Suzuki, if you noticed, all of you said exactly the same words when it came to Suzuki. Reliable, they're available everywhere, for the common person, value for money, etc., right? The famous joke, kitna deta hai, right? Any vehicle is always compared to how much mileage you get, and it doesn't matter what is the vehicle, they'll always compare it to a Suzuki's mileage on this, right? So these are things that were there, but the concept of actually having to introduce something like a Nexa is not new in the market, right? Lexus is the luxury brand of Toyota. So very few of you may know, or some of you may know, that when Toyota had the same problem that they were available as a common man's car, they had to go in and compete at the higher end of the market. They had to go in and work off a Nexa kind of, on a Lexus brand, right? Lexus brand is no different than a Toyota brand. In the US, it's not as prevalent, but Acura used to be a Honda premium brand, right? So people have to start figuring out that one way of creating this distinction and not losing identity is to actually take a sub-brand or take something else and see if you can make that work at the next set. Now, Tesla was very, very different. In Tesla, the target market was, as some of you said, I want to go in and work through the, so his whole positioning was nothing fundamentally has changed in the transportation market, but for the last 20, 30 years, it's still the same internal combustion engines. But he also had the double, he had the requirement, when I say double, he had to have doubly increase his effort to make it desirable, right? So, and in that sense, he's taken a leaf out of the Apple piece where he has said, this is premium. I'm going to make it desirable. So it's not just a green feel-good factor. It was also to say that you can actually hit to the pride and talk about, in the Maslow hierarchy where you want to go about and say, emotionally, I'm going to tug at you and say that, look, not only is going to meet functional requirement, it's going to meet the requirement related to quality. It is going to meet the requirement associated with the emotional aspect. It is also going to meet your social aspect of requirement outside of it in terms of how you are perceived, right? So that is a very, very different positioning, and for which I want you to think of what, and I'll use an example to come back and say what I believe they did to make it desirable, right? We will come to that. So in all of those things, BMWs and the Nexus and Suzuki had to protect their standing and then expand on their standing, whereas Tesla had to make it more desirable coming in from the cold, right? Very, very similar issues with the service offerings below. Marriott has a standing. They have to worry about the standardized offering. They have to stick to the promise of safety, availability, the same level of offering, whether it's a Taj hotel, whether it's an Oberoi hotels, etc. Right? Each one tries to do that and holds on to that particular piece. Whereas Airbnb was coming in and saying, look, I can actually change this particular structure. So it was also associated, as some of you talked about, is a younger generation who wanted to experience a differentiation. Not that they were not, it's almost like saying, look, why would somebody go and have breakfast in a specialty place other than a standard place like a McD? It's a very different audience set, right? Somebody who knows that they have either when they're traveling, they're looking for a comfort of standardization. So I can name hundreds of Indians who will still travel abroad, or more specifically Americans who will travel outside of their country and will go to a standard restaurant, American restaurant, right? Why? Because they expect that standard. They're not the experimentation type. Whereas you'll have a significant number of people who will go in and say, I want to experience something different. I know there is a standard. I want to work through this piece, right? So somebody like a Bloom Rooms had to come in, had to fight this particular war, had to fight to go back and still give the same piece to say that, look, it is standard, but then it is different. It is a new age, right? So we'll kind of look at how I believe they try to position. So on this, I'm going to go to the next slide, and it'll be interesting that I now take three cases. I take the case of Airbnb, I take the case of BMW, and then I'll take the case of Bloom Rooms, right? Now, if you think about it, the promise and the promotion, nothing has changed in their way, except the first thing that Airbnb did after they started working through and figured out their target market. So Sumana, to your point, the old Airbnb logo is the one that you see on the left-hand side, right?
Okay.
So they launched as Airbnb on the left-hand side. The Airbnb that you recognize now is the new Airbnb, where they talked about an ability where people can identify with the logo. In fact, they ran a campaign that says, make the logo yourself or something like that, right? Look at Airbnb campaign on logo, you will see a whole lot of things on the internet. They actually launched a campaign that said, how do you identify yourself with this particular logo? And they drove to that, right? And there's a reason why they've worked with this. So you will see at the bottom that they started to go back and look at all the emotional aspects, all the social aspects that was not related to diversity, functionality, quality, right? Expectation on the pieces. They just took very, very overarching social pieces and put it together. So first thing they said is people are different. So they took at people, they took the locations structure, which is, sorry, I'm just going to switch. Sorry, they took the location symbol and said that this is available across places. They took the love symbol and essentially an Airbnb. So no, this is a completely different launch. This is a completely different positioning. Well, they have said that when we talk about Airbnb, in their mind, the positioning is this is allowing you to experience new people, experience new places, experience love. And so if you think about it, the word that I'm using is experience. And Srishti, to your point, in some ways, that is a different piece, right? 1 second, just a second. I have some income. Sorry, there was somebody insistently calling. Kannan, you have raised your hand.
Sir, just one request. Is it possible to touch upon how does this segmentation works in the B2B space also?
Correct. I will. Give me a minute. I will come to that. Remind me. I will try and do it on the B2B, but not very different, because when I talk about what is the expectation that you're setting, I will come back to that, right? Because you're setting a few expectations. If you notice in all of these, one point I want you to observe very keenly. Has anybody used the word cheap, expensive, value, money? Has anybody used anything related to the price, right? One thing you'll notice that, as you may not have expected, you might have expected people are going to talk about price, right? If you will notice that not one has talked about price, but all of you as users have a perception of the price, right? Keep that in mind as I come through, but Kannan, I'll try and address the B2B side also, right? But it's from a reaching an individual and sending a message subtly, it's no different. Any questions on this? I want you to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking maybe these new brands, which have like new kind of value proposition, will have to be on a price discovery journey for some time, right? They're not really sure where to, or they may not be able to predict the right price point to begin with.
I'll argue the same way. I'll argue the same differently. I will argue it's the reverse. I'll argue the reverse. They figure out where they want to be in the pricing structure and then start passing the messaging. That is why I keep saying positioning on what you want to be, which market segment you want to hit, and how do you want to convey that messaging is the in my opinion is the trick in branding that you have to drive. Right? So as Srishti said, while you think of Marriott being the more expensive one, she was, it's not really the price that is driving a few people to take on the very luxurious Airbnbs, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but
it's a
shouldn't there
secondary
be
factor. It may be a factor. I'm not saying it's never a factor, but it's not the driving factor. It's not the primary factor. It's a secondary factor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even in terms of finding their target audience, target segment, shouldn't it be a discovery after, like, they may not really get it right the first time? Like,
no, they may not get it right. They may change the target audience, but all I'm saying is you should do the target audience segmentation before you start all the other things.
Okay, and then tweak as you discover more things.
Maybe you have not hit the right target segment. Maybe you want a premium, but the same example, right? If I give you two names, these names are always existing. If I give you, let's say, Bata versus High Design, right? You have a perception in the mind. It's a separate set of target and market audience. But would you think that High Design would have been where they are if they had gone after the Bata segment? I don't think so. Right? Because their market segment was very, very clear. They knew exactly what they were going to offer. Their audience that they wanted to promise, their promise to their audience was not based on price.
Yeah, but then High Design and Bata are not very different products, right? But here, like Airbnb is a totally new kind of a product, not seen in the market before, and Marriott is
which is why I am using this example, because I want you to understand what do you think Bloom Rooms would do, because that's why I put this, and that's why I put Tesla, right? Because they are all new entrants. They did not have a precedence in that sense. Right. That's exactly why I'm using these examples in this particular sequence.
Okay.
Right. So hold on to your thought for just a minute. But did you understand this particular piece? Right.
Yeah. I mean, you should have a price point and a segment in mind before you do the positioning bit.
Right.
And then you can tweak it as you go along.
Correct. Any arguments on that from others before I go to the next? So I'm going to the next state, and somebody mentioned the promise that BMW had. I'm glad he remembers the tagline, the ultimate driving machine, right? So for a very, very long time, BMW used this tagline called the ultimate driving machine, right? And it worked for them. It worked for them because they were very, very they were seen as, okay, you want a driving experience, you want the best driving experience, you have to pay premium for it, and we are the best driving experience, right? It also allowed them, at that time, they were toying with getting into the bike side, they were coming into the cycle side. So all this were very, very helpful process. So in between, they actually changed. I don't know how many of you watch this. If you look at their journey, some of them start changing the messaging. So in between, they changed the messaging to sheer driving pleasure, right? And the reason they had to talk about pleasure was they had to give a feeling of luxury, which the competition took. Mercedes and Lexus and a few others, especially some of the other European brands, started taking the concept that you take our machine, our car, it gives you a sense of luxury, a sense of having arrived, right? So they had to play one level higher, and then they, for a brief time, started doing something called sheer driving pleasure. What is again very important is that was working fine from a traditional TV and print positioning. It was not really working as much when you got into the Facebook, Instagram, the hash process, right? When you started doing the hash tagging. So how would you hashtag? You couldn't hashtag the ultimate driving machine, right? You could hashtag BMW, but you wouldn't be able to the hashtag ultimate driving machine, because you had to get them to think of an aspirational hashtag, right? And one is that. The second one, they realized that they had to go in after the first time luxury car buyers who were moving away. So their biggest piece that they found is they had to attract the younger people in the audience, in their audience section, where they can go back and they have to say, look, I want you to come into the BMW fold. I want you to be the first purchase of BMW. So what would they do is that they, again, I don't know how many of you have seen this particular thing. These are very, very interesting things, right? Just pay attention when you're watching to say what is driving some of it. And it's very, very interesting to watch some of this. They started something called Just Can't Wait, right? So what's the message in the Just Can't Wait? It's the younger person who wants to take on the world, who wants to play the big game, right? Who wants to grow up and be part of. So if you look at it, both the left and the right bottom ads are subtly targeted at. So it's very clear, they know, when I say subtly targeted, they know exactly who they're targeting to. But you as a reader will have the perception, is it meant for you? Is it not meant for you? Correct? Any arguments on that? Right? So as a user, you see the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side, you see the bottom right-hand side. You're kind of figuring out, is this meant for me? Is this targeted for me? They are not the ones who are saying, hey, so-and-so it is meant for you. They are saying, this is what I am targeting. It's very subtly. And then you are going back and saying, what does it mean, right? If you see, actually the right-hand side is extremely positioned to those people who have an aspirational need of getting into that. So you'll say, can't wait to play the big game. Choose your road to the BMW. So it's choose your road to BMW X1. And then you can't see the fine print, but it will say with as little as X number of lakhs that you can start getting and driving your piece. So on the left-hand side, it's the first time they actually put a price. Why? Because they want to attract and break the barrier to say, get into the big game, get onto the BMW machine. But then the positioning now, for the first time, they have to go ahead and actually put a price value associated. Again, I wanted you to think through this, not so much from a BMW perspective, but from your positioning structure. How are you going to go create a marketing campaign associated? So what happened here is that the target audience had to change subtly. Their messaging had to change subtly. They did all of that just to refine and go back and play around. But part of it is also to stay relevant, right? It's very, very important. If they had not done that particular set, there was a danger that they would, with the Teslas coming in, they're no longer relevant to the younger population associated with this, right? They had to talk about technology. They had to talk about some of these things. They had to talk about, affordable luxury. In fact, the other point that you have to make is the whole thing of affordable luxury was related to a piece where Tesla's first machines were actually more expensive than the entry point of BMW. But nobody believed that. Everybody assumed that Tesla is going to be cheaper. But in reality, on road, it was actually more expensive, right? Any questions on this before I go to the next one? Comments are also welcome.
They would have to be more expensive, right, Ravindra? Because they're launching with a new technology, unproven technology, without the logistics support. They will have to be expensive, right?
No. It's a desire that they had to go. So I'll come to that now very, very clearly, right? Okay. It's a desire that they did. So what they did, and again, very few of you may remember this. They had to make it desirable. The comparative for them were, they think of it as a Reva equivalent, boxy, not fashionable, not looking nice, the cheaper versions where you want to save money on electric. Electric was not desirable before Tesla. Right?
Right.
Electric was not desirable before Tesla. Electric was perceived as, okay, Nissan Leaf, it's a 2-seater, it's a 4-seater. It looks like, Nissan Leaf looks like the old i10 model of Hyundai when you look at it from it. So it's meant for the small car, doesn't work through. They did a completely different positioning. They actually went and said, I have 4-wheel drive always. All 4 wheels have traction. And it is desirable because not only is it electric, it is faster than your Lamborghini. It is faster than your BMW i4. Right? Now, if you look at it, they did not choose a fast SUV. They did not choose anything else. They took what was seen as the desirable car that they had to race against. Right? So early days of Tesla was all about positioning and saying, you are paying premium, you are playing the big game, big boys game, right? Be ready to spend more money, but what you are going to get is performance that you don't expect out of electric cars. Luxury in that sense was not so much a piece. It was completely about performance. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. Does this answer your question, Samana, where you talked about where was the positioning, right? They had to come in from the cold. But then when I first asked the group, whose competition for BMW, the 2-3 names came out very, very quickly. It was Mercedes-Benz, it was Volvo, it was Audi, etc. So it's a very, very easily segmentable process. Because they could not fit into the easily segmentable process, they had to take in and they had to make it desirable. And their process of making it desirable was positioning this as a performance vector. That was expensive, but it was top of the line. Why? Because a Lamborghini is, in that sense, from a US market was very desirable. A BMW i4 was very desirable.
Right.
Okay. Similar issues for somebody like Bloom Rooms. Now, if you think about Bloom Rooms is a small chain that is starting up. I mean, that's been there for the last few years. You will see very, very this yellow hotels that are all around sprouting up. And their stuff was what you see on the left-hand side versus what you see on the right-hand side is the change in position. What you see on the left-hand side kind of comes and caters to a point that was made where they had to go back and say, look, it's not an Airbnb, which means that it is cheaper than Marriott, right? But they're not saying it is cheaper. They're saying it is cheaper than Marriott. Then they are saying that it's 100% safe. So they had to very clearly say that from a quality and an expectation perspective, they had to use the word 100% safe, right? They had to use the word that it is tech-driven. Why did they have to use tech-driven? I mean, this was, in some ways, they used COVID to do this, but very slight, subtle difference, right? They are saying we are ready for this. We are not the old staid Marriott that is sitting out there. And we are 100% hygienic. That means they talked about clean, they talked about safe, they talked about tech-driven. But very clearly they realized that everybody is now talking about tech-driven. So I need to now go back and work through the piece. So this is, if you go to their website, this on the right-hand side is the new Bloom Room promise that you will find. Say, why Bloom Room? You'll go back and see this particular one, which is putting the trust back to travel. And this is a story. This is completely a story saying hospitality industry has lost its way. All everyone seems to care about is making a quick buck. So have they told it's cheap? No. But they're saying we are not here to make a big buck. Who are they hitting here? They are hitting both Airbnb as competition and Oyo Rooms as competition. Do you realize that? Right? So they're hitting wide hospitality industry, they've said. Then they're saying I'm hitting against Oyo Rooms and I'm also hitting against Airbnb, right? And then they're saying, look, what about the people they're actually supposed to care about? Who is you? So they're saying, I am going to care for you. I am your best point of contact. Now, will this work? Will this not work? Time will tell. But early stages, whatever we are seeing, they seem to be doing very, very well based on this process, right? I'm going to stop for a minute. If you look from the original side to this, I'll see if there's this. I'm going to put this and stop for a minute and then ask you. So if you think about it, everybody says, brand talks is supposed to talk to you about these 5 things. A brand is supposed to establish an identity. A brand is supposed to create a perception of that brand in you. A brand is supposed to stand for quality. And that's what part of the promise that most brands say, we are world class, we are quality conscious, we are the best in the best, right? So that kind of a structure. A brand is supposed to be something that you can trust with, where you can go and blindfolded and say, no, the statement that was made, I will do booking in Marriott because I feel that it is safer, right? There's a trust. The safe there is all about trust that is coming in, right? So if you think of these words, safe, quality, trust, these are all very, very important emotional pieces that is getting back, right? And over a period of time, the intention in all of them is to build that loyalty in you, which means that you will go back to them the next time. That is the ultimate goal, right? So if you were to actually go back and talk about what is the promise to what is the delivery of that promise. The promise is that somebody is coming to you knowing fully well that you have targeted them, and whoever you have targeted to is coming to you, right? I'm calling that as incoming lead, call that as incoming footfalls, call that as incoming inquiries. So there was a point on B2B versus B2C. Even if I were to build a B2B business, my value in a B2B business is how many people have come, read about me or heard about me and have come to me rather than me doing an outreach, right? How many inward leads have I processed, right? Now you'll come back to two key parameters that everybody keeps talking about, right? Everybody keeps talking about. When you do a marketing, they talked about CPIs, impressions, how many clicks that I have, etc. But after you develop the clicks, after you figure out what's your marketing strategy for attracting the right people, if you have an investor, most investors will start talking about lifetime value. How many of you have had return customers? How many do you have as monthly average usage, DAUs and MAUs? How much time have they spent on your site, etc. Right? So essentially, the ultimate goal from a marketing perspective is how do you build this journey where you identify the right target, you attract them enough where they come and click and they land upon you, where they hear about you, and either they have to make a purchase or come back to you the next time, because eventually at some stage, even if they have made a purchase or they have not made a purchase, you want them to convert to some kind of a loyalty where they do at least 2 transactions, because you're saying, if I can sustain them for a certain number of transactions, I know I'll sustain them for life, right? And goes back to a statement that one of you made, where we talked about, how do I get them to come in and look at you had a higher conversion once they started looking at your courses at 500 rupees, right? So you had 2 challenges in that case. How do you get the right audience to come to your course, sign up for the 500 rupee course, and from 500 rupees, how can you convert them to a higher loyalty of actually going and saying, having built trust, ask them to buy a larger amount for your course, right? That essentially was the target, or that essentially is the target that you would have for conversions. Right. So any questions on this? Now I'm going to start going back to this 3-4 people, because the next slide is going to work through. We had a question, Kanchan, you had your question about closure. Shruti, you had people coming to you about CPIs. You believe that you have the measure, but how do you go back and work through? Any changes in thought? I mean, to me, very, very clearly, it's all in the same You have, as marketing, you have 3 things to do. You have to identify whether your messaging is appropriate, your messaging is attractive enough for people to come and check you out. Once they check you out, when I say check out your services or find out more details about you. Once they check you out, have you got them to do the first buy? And post the first buy, have you delivered on the promise so that they can extend that buy to a multiple buy or develop some kind of a loyalty, right? Because until you have this, you will not have virality. I'm going to stop for a minute. Any comments on this? So while the coverage is all of this, you are not selling all of that. You are selling into something very, very, I call it as you're selling into basic instincts, right? Your sales is basic instinct. All financial products are sold on greed. All insurance products are sold on fear. A lot of social products, I won't say all, a lot of social products is sold on guilt. A lot or almost all educational products today are sold on hope. I am waiting for one of you to stop me and say that's not true, but let's debate this for a minute.
Completely true, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So,
otherwise, sir, just one example. IIT has 10,000 seats. The whole lot of India prepares for it. Hope.
Yeah, it is all hope.
It is all hope, right?
All of assessment is on hope.
We do workshop for umpiring for 2 days. The first question that a student asks is, when can I do IPL? And I'm like, sir, Nitin Menon took 10 years. Anil Chaudhary took 15 years. It will take time.
Right.
But it's hope. They're just asking that, can I at least? So I'm like, yes, anybody can. If you plan it and if you dream it about it.
So why have I put this? Why have I put this is because, what you're converting as your marketing position. So until now, all that we talked about in some ways is encapsulated in who are you targeting, how are you targeting. But you have to fulfill a promise. And to fulfill a promise, you have to realize that you have to hit one of these emotive base instinct. You have to hit that nerve that is it, right? I can give you a different approach. I can say, oh, has to be a social angle to your brand. There has to be a functional angle to your brand. There has to be a quality angle to your brand. There has to be an emotional angle to your brand. But all of that kind of gets encapsulated into these 4 basic instincts that you're selling it. So, as I said, show me one particular financial product that is not sold on greed. Or think of one insurance product, or in some case even educational product, not sold on fear. It could be variety of fear of missing out, right? You can go back and say, here's an early offer. If you wait for 2 days, you are going to miss out, right? It doesn't matter what is that fear, but it's sold on fear. All of medical processes is sold on fear. All of wellness product is either hope or guilt.
Is aspiration different from hope? Or?
No. So this is a basic instinct. Aspiration is related to where your social standing is. Is that Sumana?
Yeah.
Aspiration is based on your social standing, right? Aspiration is related to audience. But I'll still sell the same thing to your audience. So this was aspiration, right? This was aspiration. Hold on for a minute. This is completely aspiration. Right? But I've already figured out where you are. This is in some ways, aspiration is related to greed here some ways, right? Your social standing. So you're purchasing for two things. The purchasing power that you have demonstrated is for two things. One, how does it rank you in your social standing? Second, how do you feel about it? Why do you want it? So this is the brand started to work through. This is the reason why it is sold. The sales is done on this. The marketing positioning is based on social standing. So actually two different dimensions. I will argue that it's independent dimension.
Ravindra, I have a question. My name is Rupa. So based on the basic instinct that you're speaking about, I just want to know, like, even if it is, these instincts could be based on the Maslow hierarchy theory. I mean, does it come like basically your hope is built at the very basic level? Your fear could be like, your insurance or say even your financial gain. And does it come because you see a sense of maturity which comes as you move up the pyramid?
This is exactly what. So you kind of led me to my next screen. Yes, it is. Absolutely, yes. You are playing to any one of your left-hand side needs. Don't worry about how you do that. And now we'll go back and work. Very, very clearly, you can map the brand to this particular structure if you spend a bit of time. Right?
Right.
So we'll take the ones that I read it from memory, right? We'll take the service ones. The moment I talk about Marriott, right? What was the comment? It was almost at a base level, safety needs, right?
Yeah.
And the safety need, if you remember, is far outstrips any of the other needs because it's a base need. In fact, a comment was made to say that I don't care if it is more expensive. I will book it because it is, in my perception, it is safe. Safety is,
right.
is the most important factor at that point of time.
Correct.
Okay. So somebody was talking about organic, right? At some stage, you have to figure out whether that organic food is helping a physiological need to say that it is good for me. No, as water, air, shelter is that level, or is it slightly higher end in the social need category? But a BMW was very, very clearly in the esteem needs, right?
Right. Yes.
So if you think about it, although Tesla was introduced in a social need to say it's electric car, it's good, they had to address esteem needs. They had to address self-actualization to say, hey, I am, on the right-hand side on the top, you say morality. I want to say I'm doing good for the environment. They had to establish that feel-good factor. Right?
Right.
But you're absolutely right. So these are three different things that you have to do. Create your market segment, create the story, identify the market that you're going after. 2, identify what is your sales trigger. Is it, and the sales trigger is a base instinct. Are you selling to greed? Are you selling to hope? Are you selling to, fear? What are you selling into? Then you need to go back and create the story and say, look, this is where it fits. This is my segmentation structure. This is what I'm going to do. Then your messaging is actually going to be very, very clear. Right? So think about it. Airbnb, where would you put that in? You would put them into social needs, not the safety needs. Think about it. It's talk about friendship, multiple location, going out with friends, working together. That's what it is targeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now you had 3-4 people asking questions. Right? For a minute, I'm now going to turn this back. If you were to think of your own brand and your own positioning, post this discussion, I don't need you to say yes or no. I just want you to say, do you think it would prompt you to rethink. At least for now, you may change. There is nothing stopping you from changing. And BMW is a perfect example where they have changed. I've given you Airbnb's example of where they have changed. There's no problem in changing, but when you change, you have to identify what change are you playing into and how are you going to address that. That story has to be complete in target, in attracting them to you, in making them try whatever you are offering as a service, and then re-establish to say, do you want to buy one more time, at least? No different from B2B and B2C. Actually, no different.
I'm actually confused after looking at this. Selling sustainable clothing, sustainable cookware, bath and body needs, we were always focusing on self-actualization needs.
Right.
So being sustainable, good for your health. But when we say good for your health, it falls under physiological needs.
Could be safety also. Could be safety also.
Yeah, safety also. When we say, when we say zero waste, sustainability, it falls under self-actualization needs.
Correct.
But unfortunately, people always mostly pay in for social needs and esteem needs.
So there is a fundamental difference. I don't. When you say that you're confused, the confusion is not there. The confusion is, as you go higher, you'll get premium. So in your product structuring, you will definitely get higher premium for, and it's a different target market who will pay more to be socially conscious, right? Whereas safety is different. I know enough. I've even invested in a few things on the food side. I will tell you that today, if somebody were to go back and say 100% chemical free, that is a safety need. Organic, non-organic may be separate.
Mm-hmm.
You understand the difference that I'm...
Yeah, but how do we convince a customer? See, you are a conscious customer probably, and so you will understand the difference between organic and chemical free.
Yeah, so there,
or maybe even natural, organic, chemical free. The categorization is different.
So I'm not giving you the solution because frankly, it's not my business to give you the solution. You are the brand owner, right? You are the. But I'm saying it's a very different market segmentation. Your approach to it could be two different ways, but you have to approach it differently. You cannot club the two, because by clubbing the two, you're actually doing disservice to yourself, because you're taking two different extreme examples of market segment and trying to push the same message to them. They will not understand. I will argue that you're making a mistake of trying to club market segments, and I'm also arguing that you'll confuse them. They don't know what they want.
So I should clearly put myself inside one of these five only,
or create a segmentation that's different. You'll say this is organic plus, or this is organic silver gold. I mean, I don't know. You have to think of a distinction. You have to create the distinction.
Okay. So this sustainability is all about being socially responsible and all that, right? So would that come into the social needs category? Or this is Maslow's law?
Social need is a bit of a show off, right? I want to be seeing that as I want to work.
So that's a personal
to belong
social
to a community, right? There's a difference between social need and self-actualization. Self-actualization, I'll pay premium. Social need, I want to be part of that community. It's a community tendency.
Right. No, I was talking about being socially responsible, which is, I don't think it fits into this Maslow's hierarchy, right? Because this is all about personal needs.
I will argue that social need. I will argue that is also very, very personal.
You want to be trying to the.
Your target should be there. Hold for me. Your target should be there. I can just go back and say I do good to the nature. I'm good for this, right? Doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. They have to have empathy with your brand. They have to empathy with your service. They have to say, yes, I want to do this in comparison to 5 other options that they have. Please remember that you are in business. You are in business and you have competition.
Correct. No, let's say when I package something in a eco-friendly packaging material, It may be a bit more cumbersome to use, but it's by using the product, you're being socially responsible.
Yeah, but then you're targeting a whole set of different people who you think are the right audience for that.
Yeah, right.
You will not put that. You will not put that. So I'll give the same example. You will not put that into a Reliance shelf. Or you should not put that into a Reliance shelf, is my argument.
Okay. No, my question was with respect to this Maslow's hierarchy. Does social responsibility have a place in this hierarchy?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Which level?
Which is personal. Which is. If I am working in a community, it's 3 levels. When I belong to a community, it is a social need. It caters to my esteem need. So, how do I give you? Let me think of a very, very different example. So, Sumana, I don't know if you know. There are lots of Rotary clubs in Bangalore, right? Are you a member of any of the club? Why would you want to be a member of a club? A social club. Forget tie. There is a tie. There is a very different kind of a club, right? You want something out of tie. But why would you want to be part of a Rotary club?
To make a positive difference to the society.
Because you want to be part of the community. You want to be recognized that you are part of the community. You want to work together with that. You want to also have a bit of self-actualization, right? You want to be recognized, to say, hey, so-and-so is doing some good work. So-and-so knows all these people. It's recognition.
No, that is all fine. I mean, when you talk about clubs, it clearly makes sense. Let me just give you a practical example. Like my son always, likes this cup noodles, which comes in a big plastic container. And I keep telling him this is more for travel needs and not when you're at home and you can just get a packet of regular noodles and cook it in your own vessel, right? We are at home. So for him, convenience is important. He just wants to take the noodles upstairs to his desk and do whatever he has to do. And for me, it's about being more socially responsible to the environment. So, you're not really looking for esteem. There is no esteem need here. I mean, my esteem needs are not satisfied when I say you don't use cup noodles, right? Because nobody is there seeing me using a regular packet instead of cup noodles. But still, I insist that it has to be done. And for him,
guilt. You feel guilty. You feel guilty.
Okay. Yeah, guilt. Guilt may be the right emotion here. Yeah.
Yeah, and here, Ravindra, I would also like to mention with my startup Loan Genie, I'm also looking at balancing profits with making profits, and at the same time trying to see if we can have a positive impact on the environment around us. So one way we are looking at doing that is through financial inclusion of these people who have, who find it difficult to get these loans. The second way, which is a very open way of doing it, what we are saying is that we'll give away 5% of our fees to Akshay Patra or some other charity.
Right.
So here I can understand what Sumana is trying to say, that how the social responsibility part of it, where does it fall in the Maslow's hierarchy? Would be interesting to know.
No. So you don't need to draw a piece, right? You're. Please understand, you're putting all of this position with the hope that you are reaching the right audience who will buy from you, right? That's a very, very simple criteria. In Sumana's example, I will argue that Nissin or whoever is the cup noodle manufacturer do not want to target Sumana. They want to target her son, right? And if her son decides to buy it, Sumana can say no, but you're basically, she's not the target at all. So you have to think about it from a very marketing positioning, from a business piece that you are in.
Yes,
you can work through all of it, but they're going to spend advertising money. I'll ask you very different. Will they spend money in a Asta channel? They will not. That's not the target market at all, right? Will they spend money along with a cartoon that talks about that age? I mean, I'm just making this up, right? Yes, they will, because that's the target market that they're going after.
Right.
So you're thinking of it internally. Please don't think of it. Whatever I have talked about now is talking about how do you position your product, your services, your offering into the wider market out there. I'm assuming you're doing this business because you want to make the business freestanding.
Yes, for profit, definitely. But also, it's benefiting a whole lot of people.
Correct. That's fine. But primary goal has to be, you have to get it freestanding. After what you do with that profits is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes. Sure.
So, Ravindra, my question was not related to today's topic, probably. This Maslow's law, does it cater to, does it address the social responsibility aspect of our, lives?
See, this is just a representation of what impacts somebody's perception. This is and this is for me, this is a very different. If you see the heading, I have not talked about all of that. I have said, look, this is a good way to establish need and understand, which base emotion are you selling for, which is, fear, greed, whatever else. And how are you packaging that? Because is it something that you need to have, or is it a good to have? Right? So example is, again, one of the pieces that we covered earlier, safety was a need. Safety was not good to have.
Right.
When you went to a hotel, safety was a need. Right? Cleanliness was a need. Okay, can I move? Now, I'm going to switch back. I'll do two things. I'll come back to this piece. I want to cover one set before I come in. I'm going to switch the share slightly because I know this usually happens when we start debating in this. It's already 5:40. We have another 20 minutes, so I want to make that. So what is changing? What is changing from earlier to now is that traditionally you had, when you started talking about marketing, you had the concept of above the line advertising, which was television, radio, essentially broadcast, right? I'm just giving you at a very high level. So in fact, Google Ads, I will tell you, is also some kind of a broadcast, right? Because you're putting out and saying that I want to work through this piece. So in relation to this, I'm going back to one question that was raised where they said, one of you talked about having to go to Amazon and trying to sell your product, right? Is that a good strategy? Please remember that whether it is Amazon or whether it is Flipkart, etc. In my mind, again, this is I've had lots of debate on this, so I'm going to be very open about that particular piece. I believe most people who go to Amazon know what they are looking for, right? In one of my questioning with somebody in Flipkart, I asked, how many people start at the search bar, right? And you'll be surprised. More than 80% of the people will go to Amazon or Flipkart and start their shopping exercise at the search bar, right? What does that mean? That means they know what they're looking for. Their intent is very clear. So in some ways, Amazon and Flipkart, I will argue, is not doing any positioning at all. It is only catering to their known intent and giving them options for their known purchase pattern, right? And this is where I've had a whole lot of argument. There are people who believe that marketplaces are discovery places. I will say yes and no. I will argue that marketplaces are discovery of price, discovery of options, not discovery of intent. right? I'm going to stop for a minute for you to absorb.
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I asked this question, and so what I am inferring from what you just said, being present on Amazon as well, when I sell a product which is not widely searched, for example, tooth powder, we sell herbal tooth powder.
Right.
People are not going to be searching for herbal tooth powder, nor will they find me because I'm present on Amazon.
Correct.
So, okay. So if it is a product which is widely searched for, then it makes sense in being in marketplaces.
Correct. Right.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And own digital channels, doesn't this apply to Google AdWords too? Because AdWords is also similar to this, isn't it?
AdWords is similar to that, but AdWords work until a certain stage. In my experience, it's an addictive marketing strategy that sucks a lot more money than you're willing to pay long term. Right? Because it is, I mean, I call this as Google AdWords. So just a off story, right? I was an investor with StayZilla. We were doing stays across all Zillas that's how the birth of StayZilla was. So when we started looking at all of those things and we were trying to position against OYO, etc., one of the things that I realized is that I almost said Google's equivalent of the opium war against China and India was AdWords, right? It makes you addicted. You start spending more and more on AdWords. You'll find some conversion. To get more conversion, you spend more money, right?
Gambling. We're literally gambling for words.
It's consumption that is very, very addictive, according to me. Right? I know I'm making very, very strong statements, but I call that as the marketing drug where they're making money off you.
Okay. So considering now my extension of my question, I asked if offline is better for products which need awareness creation. So we are selling natural laundry. We are telling people move from, a chemical laundry to a natural laundry, move from toothpaste to a tooth powder, move from soaps to bath powders or natural options. So this needs awareness creation. So people are not yet searching for me, though it's becoming a trend. They're not yet searching for a tooth powder or a bath powder, right, or a handmade clothing. They're not searching for handmade clothing. They are searching for kurta. They're searching for dress.
Right.
So, which means I am not a Google AdWord candidate, nor am I a marketplace candidate. Does that mean I will have to sell mostly on my own channels?
You are in the Tesla mode. You have to now figure out what will sell, where they have to feel a sense of pride. They have to say, this is very different. Maybe you will label it differently. Maybe you will make that very apparent. Maybe you will put a logo where people are proud to carry that logo.
But that needs a lot of branding effort.
It is, because you are creating a market where none exists. Your competition is not very clear.
Like Fab India.
Yeah, if you had a competition, you could go and compete. Right? If you think Fab India is your competition, then you have a choice. Then you can go after Fab India. Right?
Okay. Yeah. So in this case, is offline a better, I mean, just a perspective I know, in such scenarios, is offline a better channel than online?
Works as long as you have rub-off, right? So if you now go do a deal in Fab India to do a store in a store, which means every Fab India store you will get a shelf where you stock your tooth powder. Why not?
Okay, store in a store, but not own store.
No, because own store is your nobody is. So I'm asking the store in. That's why it becomes very, very clear, right? When you do your own store, they should be going to a place to buy that. They should know exactly what they're looking for. Right?
Yeah.
So you will go to a Bata to buy shoes. I mean, I'm just making this up, but you know exactly what you're looking for. That's no different than Amazon, right? In that sense.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we should first figure out where our target audience goes to, right? And then what are their frequently visited channels, and then advertise in those channels.
Absolutely. So which is why we are coming this. More and more, you will realize that marketing used to be the broadcast. I will do something on the print. I will do something in TV. I will do something as a mailer, etc. But if you see more and more, and then once the interest was generated, it was all sales, call sales, right? It is shifting. It is shifting because if you remember what I told you, you are now getting to a stage where awareness is created, interest is generated, they'll consider options, they come to you with an intent. So it's on the right hand side, you will see that your marketing is actually spanning 4 of that. So what's the best marketing strategy? The best marketing strategy is they come to your landing page with an intent to say, hey, this is good, I want to know more. Because then you are only talking about conversion. You're only talking about evaluation and price. So what is the evaluation? You'll give them a 1-month offer. You'll give them a freebie. You will say, try this and then buy. You'll say first 15 days is free, right? That was not the case on the left-hand side, right? That's always the case now. Again, does not matter whether it's B2B or B2C. So B2C, I will argue, has become very much more marketing rather than core sales. Because core sales is not as scalable as marketing is. It takes time, takes a bit more money initially, but more sustainable.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? B2C is more marketing than sales.
Correct. So your evaluation of your marketing now is, it used to stop at awareness and interest generation. Now it is coming all the way up to making sure that you create a landing page specific to that person. So in your mind, if somebody is interested in, I'm assuming it's the same tooth powder piece, right? Ramya, was that you? I didn't see.
Yeah, yes, it's me.
So if in that context, it should be that you create all of this awareness, you create awareness about tooth powder. Why is it better than toothpaste? You generate the interest, they come back, they consider and say, hey, this is good. There are some facts. This makes sense. When they come and land on your site, your landing page should be very clear that we have to direct them with an intent that they want to try out your tooth powder as against a toothpaste.
Okay.
Okay. Now that means you have to put together a technology stack that will support you for that, right? And there will be a whole lot of names here. Don't worry so much about it, but you have to understand which technology piece are you going to put, where are you going to put, right? So in terms of awareness, it is the same set: Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, Sprout Social, whatever else that you want to have in terms of awareness, right? Google AdWords, slightly dated one. So you have a Yahoo, so nobody cares about it anymore, but mostly Yahoo Japan, because they still continue to do very well. But then you talk about website. Are you talking about a GitHub? Are you talking about a WordPress process? How are you going to work through? Are you using something like landing pages? When you talk about landing pages, are you using Optimizely? Are you using Crazy Egg? What are you doing for your SEO? Are you using something like a SEM Rush, SEO Rush, Moz? What are you doing for your marketing orientation? How are you doing retargeting as you go through? Are you using something like customer.io? The last two things, which is interaction and measurement, is all about sales process, right? Don't worry so much about that piece. But the marketing has to go all the way here, in the initial pieces. And the measurement has to come in there. So either you could use something like a mixed panel where you're driving your own stuff, or you're going with a Google Analytics. Now, this seems a very, very busy file. Don't worry so much about this. I have a similar one, slightly smaller one when it comes to how do you take them from prospect to a trial user to a repeat user? So in a repeat user, you're worrying about engagement. You're talking about things like Hotjar, right? Where you are finding out what was their customer journey? What is the customer journey that is taking place? Whereas prospecting and lead, you're still talking about Google Analytics, trying to do some bit of intercom and Hootsuite, etc. Right? But what is important for you is to actually start figuring out where you need help and start filling the blanks in this particular structure, right? So when you want to create awareness, what are you going to do? Are you going to go after Facebook? If you're B2B, are you going to go after LinkedIn contacts, right? The sales suite of LinkedIn. If you're going after younger generation, are you going to go after Insta, right? Are you going to go after a completely different market where you have to do the equivalent of a YouTube video or a TikTok video? What is your social awareness? How do you build awareness of what you want? On top of that, when they come to your website, how do you draw them into your website infrastructure so that you can create landing pages associated with wherever they're working? What's your backend data management that you are going to work through this, right? How are you going to start passing those messages? Do you have an email structure? Then how is your marketing automation going to try to your email, which means that you have to send not one message, you have to send 5 messages over a 6-week period. The moment they show interest, how are you going to track that? How are you going to send that customer communication, right? So this is almost like a fill in the blanks that you will have to go back and figure out. Initially, a lot of this may be just Excel everywhere, right? But as you start moving through, you need to start figuring out how am I going to work on managing this, because you have to realize a lot of your spend from the sales side will start moving to this. So the more you automate this, the better off you are in terms of where you are in the position. I know I have only 4 more minutes. I will just talk through one slide and then stop, right? One other thing that you have to realize and you have to work through is earlier, when I say earlier, in most cases, your information flow was very, very controlled. You could release something and say, this is what my product specs are. This is where that information is. Now you have to realize that because your access, people can come to your website and look at these, look at comparisons, etc. Start putting together a content strategy that is 6 months, 1 year out in the future, where you set that process, because that's how long it's going to take, where they come to you to evaluate options, right? You should be the default site where they look and say, let me go look up this site, I will evaluate options, right? And a prime example of that is TripAdvisor. So you could have customer ratings, you could have user ratings, you could have product ratings, you could have product comparisons, doesn't matter what it is, right? These are important pieces for you to do. I'm not, I'll just go through, most of it is sales, but from your perspective, the idea that I keep telling you is you have to get to what is the incoming lead that is coming in. So if you today do not have a landing page and an opt-in of some kind of a form where you're getting information, build this. From leads, go up. From leads, go down. Right? So your key criteria is how many incoming leads do you have? Then all your offers of try and buy, positioning, pricing will go down. All your conversions will go, I mean, this will come to conversions. All your development will go up. That means you have to develop an audience, will go up. I'm going to stop for a minute. And any questions, anything else?
So this means...
this once more.
Yeah, would you be able to elaborate leads? When we say leads, so landing page, let us assume a website.
Yeah.
So the landing page where I take the information of the customer, or where I gather analytics that
no,
what did they do from the landing
come
page?
to that with an intent. You made them come to that with an intent. You know what is their intent and having reached that landing page.
Okay. So, can you show that slide?
Yeah, I'll show this. This is the one, right? So see this slide in reference to this piece, this slide, right? I'll switch to the other slide, right? You have used your marketing for awareness, interest, etc. Your landing page is where you know that intent is there. You want them to, you know their intent is very clear. Either they want to consider, they've considered, either they want to look at more details. So in your case, tooth powder, you've generated the interest. They're saying, hey, this is interesting. I have considered that. I want to know more. That is the intent. Intent is to know more. Then you can go and convert them to say, here's a trial package, right? You fill this form out and I will send you one 10-gram trial just for trying. And along with that, send a coupon to say, if you buy it in the next 10 days, it's 20% off. I'm just making this up, right?
Yeah. And in the landing page, suppose I have 25 SKUs in the real scenario.
No, you should not have 25 SKUs. I will argue that you could have 25 SKUs, but they all should be to the same target market. They should all be to the same emotion. They should all be to the same set. Yeah. Okay.
But on the landing page, should I show the 25 SKUs, or should I only show that one which the intention was meant for?
Preferably one where you can convert. Or a comparison of one or two where you can go back and say, here is the option. This is the best one for you. Either way, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but it should be convertible. Let me do the reverse. Right? I will also tell you something very, very strange. Choice is not good when you are selling.
Okay.
Right? It is counterintuitive, but I'll make the statement again. Don't give too many choices to your customer. It is not a good thing.
No, see, the tooth powder I only have one, but bath powder I will have, hair wash powder I will have, something like that, right?
That's okay.
That is okay. But you're saying don't have 5 varieties of tooth powders.
Correct.
Okay.
That is to begin with, right? Until you establish a brand.
No, that is not to begin with. That is based on, if you have a different segment, if you are targeting a different segment with a different, tooth powder with gold in it, then you target it differently, right?
No, what I meant was like, if you take a typical brand like a Colgate toothpaste, they have so many flavors of it, right?
Yeah, but it's very different. I will sell one which has salt in it to a different market. I will sell one that has turmeric or something else to somebody else, right? See, please understand, your intention is I have brought you up to my doorstep. I want you to buy. Okay. I've spent a lot of time and effort bringing you to my doorstep. I don't want to lose you. I want you to buy.
Yeah. Choice can make them postpone the purchase.
Correct.
What about soaps? I'm sorry, they're just digging more. Soaps, people want choice, no?
Yeah, but then I will argue that if you have created a choice, you have created a soap that is softer and for babies, I will say target it differently for babies. Let them land there.
You're saying okay. So generally people want lavender, sandal, rose.
I'll go back and start with this piece. Right.
Yeah, sir, just to give one example, in our cases, there are like a lot of courses, but they're all targeted towards sports loving people. We don't even give a chance to go to homepage. They can't even, if they're landing from a Facebook advertisement, they have to see the same page. They can't go back to they have type on Google to find our homepage. because once they have left that page, very tough to bring them back.
Yeah, absolutely. You spent a lot of time and effort bringing them to that page. Why would you confuse them at that point, right?
And Ramya, it is
hold on to them. You have to convert them.
Yeah, and it's always good once they have made the purchase, then you showcase them 20 other options.
Absolutely. Give them coupons, tell them we also have this. All of that is fine.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I hope I've made my points very clear, but this is contextual. I hope this was good enough. I will share this slide.
Ravindra sir, just one question. I think I missed out that one. You may have covered it. Top of the funnel, then middle of the funnel, and then bottom of the funnel. So, bottom of the funnel is where you have already sold them and you want them to come back or to speak about you.
Correct.
Right. My question was more about the middle of the funnel where you say bounces and readers. How do you tackle those bouncers who just come for 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds or maximum 5 seconds and leave? And there's a way to retarget them.
No, so yeah, there is a way to retarget. I would say first and foremost, you should be very clear. Is your messaging clear? If you feel your messaging is clear, don't worry so much of bounce rates, because according to me, bounce rates are good when your messaging is clear, because somebody who's come in, very clearly what message you want to convey. That person is not interested. It is better to lose that person.
Right? Okay, you're saying that don't showcase them again the same thing, because he's anyways
assuming you feel your messaging is very clear. If your messaging is unclear and you have high bounce rate, that is a worry.
Okay. And leads are basically people who have left their information, right? Or they have left a query.
Their intent and their expression is very, very clear. They have said, I'm interested. Their interest has been validated. That is leads to me.
And how do you define prospects, sir? Respond to email, call to action. Okay.
No, prospects is where they have their interest could have been led by price. Their interest could have been led by information. Their interest could have been led by experiencing something new. Prospect to me is where you have understood that quality of interest.
Okay. All right. I got that. Thank you. This is very nice slide to have it. For future, I'm just clicking a photograph of this.
Yeah, I'll share the slide, but I'm going to stop sharing
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Maybe I know I'm already 7 minutes over schedule. I hope it was good. I know.
Very nice, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravindra. Quite helpful.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ravindra.